Today on Apocalypse Auto, we're in the mecca for rusty metal and excessive horsepower, Wasteland Weekend. So if you guys watched the last episode of Apocalypse Auto, we were down in Darwin, California, shooting a scene for an upcoming post-apocalyptic movie, but now that we're done filming, it's time to head on down to Wasteland Weekend, which is only a 300-mile drive from where we are in Darwin, California, so it shouldn't take long to get there as long as we don't have any hiccups. And everything was going just fine until the lid off of our gun turret in the back of the bus decided to catch some air. But luckily, it didn't hit any oncoming traffic, so Tyler had to pull over and pick it up off the side of the road for us. So after picking up some supplies at the liquor/grocery/ammo store, we're heading out into the desert so we can finally let loose the poor Fiero who has been trapped on this trailer behind the bus for the last 1,100 miles. So now that we got the Fiero unloaded from the trailer and we're starting to settle into our Wasteland Weekend home, we couldn't help but notice one of our neighbors had a pretty badass rig, so we decided to go over and have a little chat. And it turns out this 1970s Duster has a Jeep CJ5 drivetrain with a Ford 9-inch in the back and a Dodge 383 under the hood, and attached to that is a 727 transmission, and these guys drove this thing all the way from Chandler, Arizona, which is a 7-hour drive in a normal car.
Our gas gauge reads backwards, so E is actually enough.
That's so...
It sounds great.
Oh, you want to fire it up? Nice. And after checking out this badass Duster, it was time to finish setting up camp and then wander around to find some more sweet cars to oogle over. And one of the most impressive vehicles that we found was this 1997 GMC 4500 dually, which had a 1969 Plymouth Fury plopped on top of it, with a Chevy 454 and dual 600 CFM carbs. And this is what that sounds like with open headers. So after wandering around and checking out some cars, it was time to go do a little cruise about. But first we had to pull start Wayne's motorcycle because she just didn't want to start. Get some!
I just need a lighter and we're good to go. Burn me up, baby.
So as Tyler and I were cruising around in the Bacon Mobile, we decided that we'd drive through town and then head out into the desert so we could unleash the fury of the Fiero.
Yeah, we're just doing a quick around and we'll go past the med tent straight out the main gate. Keep it under 5 miles an hour going through the gate. And then when we clear, it's kind of free rein.
See you in a little bit. So after driving all the way down from Montana to California, it's finally time to see how the Fiero likes the desert. Dust storm. So after the Fiero got done kicking up some dust, Shane had to pull over and clean out his air filter because this thing was so full of dirt. And then we were gonna find us a nice big hill to climb up to get a good view of Wasteland. But first, since we had this nice big open piece of property, Shane wanted to find out how fast the Fiero would go in reverse. How fast is that?
About 60.
Holy!
I ran out of room or it would have kept going. We following you? Yeah.
And then after those shenanigans were over, we just pointed the nose of the Fiero at the steepest hill we could find to see if she'd make it to the top. So with Shane in the Fiero and Wayne on his dirt bike, they were having no problem making it up this hill, but it was a little bit more difficult in the old Crown Vic.
Oh God. There's a little whoop-de-doo right here.
Nice.
Got it. Ah. See this? Oh no! There's a rock in the bead.
That's weird. I've never seen that before, right? Well, you were spinning some shitties down there.
Yeah, it's under a lot of pressure.
Oh, did you get a flat?
No, I got a rock stuck in my bead. I just didn't want this to turn into something.
So after Shane dug this rock out of his bead, it was time to head back to town because they were about to start the annual post-apocalyptic car cruise.
No, it's a big one.
That poor muffler dude is just getting beat.
I do believe we are underway.
So as everybody was enjoying the post-apocalyptic car cruise, one of the biggest vehicles in Wasteland just happened to roll by, so me and Tyler decided to climb up on top to get an eagle-eye view of this incredible thing we call Wasteland. It's amazing to think that Wasteland Weekend started just a couple years back as just an idea with a few hundred people that has now grown in size to be big enough to be considered a small town. And what keeps the people coming back year after year? It's all the fun-loving people that make up the community here and all the crazy things there are to do around Wasteland, including robot wars, jugger matches, the Thunderdome, shows and concerts, and then of course the vehicles. And you can't talk about Wasteland Weekend vehicles without this man, our friend Spud, where he and his tribe, Chaos Engineering, have had their fingers in plenty of badass projects over the years. This year at Wasteland Weekend, they decided to do something that's never been done before. They built this project Demon Kitty entirely at Wasteland, including installing this Jaguar body onto a truck frame, installing the engine and transmission, and then all the hours worth of wiring they had to do to get this thing to run before the weekend was over. But once they got this thing to fire up, they were in desperate need of some ATF, and we had an extra cord on the bus, so we had to donate it to the cause to get this thing moving.
ATF.
Yeah, it's all the way from Montana.
I mean,
I don't know if it's useful.
thank you. We will make use of this.
So as these guys get this beautiful piece of Wasteland engineering completed, don't forget to go into the link in the description for the entire story behind the Demon Kitty. And as the darkness was approaching, it was time to start getting ready for the night's festivities. So after a great night out in the wastes, the next day, it was time to suit up in our post-apocalyptic best and go for a stroll through town.
Boom. That's beautiful.
Yeah, this is cute.
Yeah.
So as we were wandering through town, it turned out that Tyler had a bounty out on his head, and there's only one way to resolve that. Rock, paper, scissors.
Ready?
Don't mess this up.
Oh! Want your bounty? Or do I put it back up there?
You gotta put it back up.
Okay, cool.
Launch up.
I still don't know how this works.
Oh, hell yeah, I got one of those.
So as we prepare for the last night's festivities here at Wasteland Weekend, doesn't mean that our trip has come to an end. We still have to drive all the way back from California to Montana. And let me tell you what, it is not going to be an easy trip. Because just like our trip down to Wasteland, we're on a time crunch. Because while we were down in Wasteland, we met up with a French documentary filmmaker, and he wants to film us up in our natural environment, which means we need to make the 1,100-mile drive from California back up to Montana in the next 3 days. Which wouldn't be a hard task in a normal car, but when you're in the War Child, you just never know what's gonna happen. So after spending an incredible weekend out in the desert and creating more memories than we'll ever be able to remember, sadly, it's time to head home. So after slowly tearing down camp and wandering around to say goodbye to all my favorite vehicles, finally, we were on the road.
Oh my god, are we even on a road? Dude, I can't see anything.
Yeah, we are on the road. Wow. The bus is kicking up so much dust.
So after just barely getting out of Wasteland, we'd only made it a couple miles when we realized that the bus was overheating, so we had to pull over to figure out what was going on. And it turned out that our water pump had gone bad, and so it was just dumping all the fluid out of the radiator out onto the ground. Luckily, we pulled over at a spot that had a hose and a donation box. So we decided to leave a couple bucks, and we filled up every single jug that we could find, because the closest city that had the water pump that we needed was Las Vegas, 240 miles away. So after driving for hours, we were all exhausted, so we found a high-quality hotel to spend the night at so we could recharge our batteries and let the poor war child cool down. So the next day we had to load the Fiero up onto the trailer behind the bus, and you have no idea how incredibly frustrating it was to be across the street from an auto parts store and they don't have the parts you need. And you might be thinking to yourself, why don't you guys just order the part and wait for it to show up? Well, we need to be back in Montana for a photo shoot in 48 hours. And if there's one thing that I've learned from my favorite show, Roadkill, when you're overheating, no hood is good.
The trouble I've seen, glory, hallelujah.
So after using the hotel bathtub to fill up every single thing we could find with water, we topped off the War Child's radiator, and then before we could get on our way to Las Vegas to pick up the water pump, Wayne had to figure out how to back out of this hotel parking lot.
And take the bush out.
It's like he was aiming for the bush. Right in the curb, yeah.
Beautiful.
Look at that.
Damn, Wayne.
Right. Let's go. So as we hit the road on our way to Las Vegas to pick up our new water pump, we were full of optimism for the day. But that was short-lived because as we'd come to find out, we had to stop every 80 miles to fill the war child back up with water.
What's going on?
Let's get top it off. Where do we have?
We had damn near 20 gallons.
So this became our reality for a couple hours. We'd drive for a couple miles, pull over, let the bus cool down, fill it up with fluid, drive for a couple more hours, pull over, let it cool down, fill it up with water, and on until we finally made it to Vegas.
What is like from the 40s?
Dude, that's quality junk, dude.
That's what I'm talking about. Save that shit. That is a good barter item for next year.
If you're willing.
So after driving for what felt like forever, we finally made it into Vegas, and then we just found a cheap hotel with a nice big parking lot so we could start working on the war child.
Hey, Wayne.
Yeah.
Do you have a nut bucket?
Yeah.
You get me like a cut up something?
Nut bucket. It's only supposed to be 80 today. And I thought this was going to be a nice relaxing trip. That's bad.
Yeah. I lost the first belt, and then those are all the little chunks coming off the second belt.
I noticed at one point a bunch of crap hit Tyler's car, and I was like, oh no, we just blew a tire.
No, yeah, that was when the first belt blew.
Oh,
It exploded under the engine bay, and that's when all the cords wrapped up. And
wow. I can't believe we made it to Vegas. We got lucky, dude. Good thing we didn't try to go to Salt Lake.
at least it is blatantly leaking out of the weep hole on the water pump.
Thank God. Yes! Water pump!
Wasn't as bad as I thought.
No,
So where is it broken?
it's inside somewhere.
Oh, is it? So, this is called your weep hole, and those are where it was leaking. So it doesn't seem to have any play. It spins okay, but there's a seal in here that goes out, and it just causes it to dump out. These ones are rebuildable.
Yeah. Ain't nobody got time for that, right?
Ain't nobody got no time for that! Woo! Freedom! Look at that box.
Bam.
So after removing the old broken water pump and picking up our new freshie, it was time to get this thing on the war child, so bright and early the next morning, we can make the grueling trip back to Montana.
Board windowsill. We covered it all with the exoskeleton and I-beam underneath. So it's still as heavy or twice as heavy as it was.
Yeah.
But then we covered the whole thing in street signs. So it looks like a little miniature movie.
So after spending all day working on the War Child, Wayne and Shane had finally got the new water pump put onto the engine, and then bright and early the next day, we had to start driving back towards Montana so we could meet up with our friend Cedric and he could get the footage that he needed. So the one nice thing about driving the War Child cross country, every time we stopped for gas, we always had someone new to talk to. So after driving all day and into the night, we were going to be pulling another all-nighter so we can get back home in time for our film shoot in the morning. And we were taking shifts driving and sleeping until we pulled into a familiar gas station, because 1 year ago we pulled into this gas station and had the tow bar attached to scat behind the bus break in half, and we had to sleep in the parking lot. But I'm happy to say the visit to the gas station this time went much better. And before you know it, the sun's almost up and we're home just in time to meet up with our friend Cedric.
There's Cedric.
He's been just sitting there for probably like an hour.
Just waiting for the camera. So now what am I gonna do? Run him over?
Right where he is, yeah. Right in front.
Okay. Trailer is off the road. I don't know about the plow though.
Yeah.
It looks like it's fine.
Ahoy!
How's it going?
We made it! It's been a long, strange trip.
So after just barely making it home in time to meet up with our friend Cedric, he got the footage that he needed for his film, and we unloaded the trailer so we could hit the hay. And if you like what we're trying to do on this channel, follow the link in the description and go over to our Apocalypse Auto shop and buy a sticker for your war rig or a t-shirt for your flesh. Don't forget to follow us on social media and Instagram under Apocalypse Auto 406. And before we leave, go down into the link in the description if you want to see what Apocalypse Auto would look like if it was made by a French production company. And from all of us here at Apocalypse Auto, thank you so much for watching.